I don't know what's going on. There's kind of like a jungle going on outside. Some of my neighbors' dogs are barking at each other, and there are crows outside cawing. Somebody call Eric Draven, eh? So, I apologize if you hear any of the animal noises coming outside my window, but I wanted to talk about the Vancouver Canucks today. And believe me, this is not the video I wanted to make. I actually did want to make a video talking about the entire Henrik Sedin thing. If we have time at the end of this one, if we reach to, I don't know, 7 or 8 minutes, we might be able to squeeze it in there, but I'm not really betting on it. I do want to spend some dedicated time to talking about Henrik Sedin, but if we don't get there in this video, then I guess we'll have to save it for another day. Instead, our primary focus lies on Jim Rutherford, the Vancouver Canucks president of hockey operations, who made himself an appearance on Donnie and Dhali earlier today. What he had to say were some pretty interesting comments that I wanted to highlight here and give my thoughts on, because they pertain to the Vancouver Canucks, the direction this team plans to go down with contract signings, draft picks, as well as the NHL Draft itself. There is indeed a video segment on Rick Dollywall's Twitter account of the interview, but he also went out there and published a few individual quotes that highlight these same ideas, so we're just going to be reading what he has to say and giving our thoughts about it. Here is the first in a series of tweets on Dollywall's Twitter account. Jim Rutherford said this on the NHL Draft Combine. Cami Granato did a great job in preparation. The interviews were great. We interviewed all players in the top 5. We are prepared for all scenarios. Lots of talk about the second overall pick, but we are not necessarily aggressively going after the pick. Now, firstly, big shout out to Cami Granato. The fact that she is Ray Ferraro's wife probably gives her a lot of expertise when it comes to analyzing players and preparing stuff for the draft, so it's good to see her getting involved here. But secondly, is it not just so cool to actually have a Vancouver Canucks executive that is transparent about these things? A year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, with Benning at the helm, we wouldn't get an inkling from this guy about what they're thinking about until after the draft. After the draft is when he would say, oh, we had this player in our top X. We had this player as a really good player. We thought this player was fantastic. We didn't hear anything heading into the draft when it came to Jim Benning and what the team was planning to do. Thirdly, is it not crazy that Rutherford went out there and actually said, hey, we interviewed all the guys in the top 5, and there's a lot of talk about us trading for the second overall pick. But I'm going to say it right here, we're not necessarily aggressively going after it. Holy, that's just kind of putting so much validity in all the stuff the media has been talking about. The Slavkovsky interview that we discussed earlier in the week, plus the other top 5 players. Okay, let's just go over the top 5 here and discuss who the Vancouver Canucks have talked to. They've talked to Shane Wright, which is not a surprise, I think, because I believe there was notice that Shane Wright talked to 12 or 13 teams, which a lot of people went out there and scrutinized, something in that ballpark. Maybe it was 15, I forgot. But I know a lot of people are saying, oh, why are these teams talking to Shane Wright? Because it's not really like they're going to have an opportunity to draft him, right? Then you have yourselves Logan Cooley, Slavkovsky, then you have the 2 defensemen, I guess you could say as well, Nemec and Jiricek. If not, maybe a Matthew Savoy could be thrown in there as well, maybe Brad Lambert, depending on who you ask. So, the top 5 picks, the Vancouver Canucks have spoken to all of them, and Rutherford goes out there and says, hey, we're prepared for all scenarios, man. There's a second overall pick conversation there too, but I'm not going to go out there and guarantee it. That is just so cryptic, and I love the fact that he even acknowledges this because it gives fools like me more fodder to talk about. And don't worry, I'm not calling you guys fools either. It's just kind of me because I'm the guy sitting here in my bedroom using my time to talk about trade rumors. Here's another comment made by Jim Rutherford, published by Dollywall. This is what he's talking about when it comes to the Miller and Boeser contract talks. It's in the early stages. Nothing to report. But both sides want to get it done. Both sides, I think he's meaning the Miller side and the Boeser side. Not necessarily both sides between himself, Rutherford, the Canucks, and Miller, because then there would be 3 sides, right? Miller in Vancouver plus Boeser in Vancouver. Either way, there's not really anything surprising about this. Plus, the next quote over here, when he talks about JT Miller, I believe JT wants to stay in Vancouver, and I know the Canucks want to re-sign him, but it has to be at the right term. Both sides, at some point in the next month or two, will have a better idea on where we sit. And, I mean, look, we talked about cryptic in the last tweet. I feel like this one's also kind of cryptic because Rutherford is saying all the right things. Obviously, you want to see your president of hockey ops saying that, yeah, the player wants to sign here, we want to sign the guy, but then he goes out there and he says, yeah, but it has to be right. We don't want to go out there and give this guy whatever money he asked for, whatever term he asked for, just because he's asking for it and just because he had 99 points last year. You got to remember the comments that Rutherford made earlier saying that, yeah, if we do talk to Miller, we negotiate, and it doesn't work, we're going to have to make a non-emotional decision. So I think it's more likely than not that JT ends up getting traded. I'd been feeling that way for a few weeks now, and with these comments from today saying that, yeah, I mean, it has to be at the right price, but we'll have ourselves a few months to figure things out, I think it's just going to be a question of when rather than if, because I mean, look, JT doesn't really have any reason to settle for anything less than what he could be worth on the open market because the guy is just so gosh darn good. He had a 99-point season. Like, how many 99-point players do you see take hometown discounts, quote-unquote? Or not hometown discounts, quote-unquote, but like loyalty discounts. If JT goes out there and accepts a contract in the $8 million range, maybe the $7.5 million range for like, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, then like, I would absolutely be shocked. There's no way he's going to go out there and do that. So, for Rutherford, he's saying the right things in the media, but I think it just kind of paints a little bit more of a different picture as to where the Canucks are going to go with this player. And it's been like that for a while now, so I'm just kind of repeating myself from things that we have been saying over the past few weeks. Rutherford also talked about the assistant coaching staff and how the Vancouver Canucks are looking for the right assistant coach who can complement Bruce Boudreau. Now, Mike Yeo was a guy that was thrown around in a whole bunch of rumors ever since the start of the week, it feels like. Now, I know Mike Yeo has had himself a pretty good tenured amount of success with both the Wild and the Blues. Okay, he got fired by the Blues immediately after missing the playoffs and starting out bad in 2018-19, but he still made the second round with that team. And for Minnesota, he made the second round twice as well. It's just he took a break from coaching at the NHL level to come back to Philadelphia in 2021-2022 where things were really not great. And so I could totally understand the concerns for a lot of Canucks fans saying, yeah, no, I kind of don't like Mike Yeo as the guy. But you got to remember, if he comes over to Vancouver, he would be a secondary assistant coach to Bruce Boudreau and not the main number one. I saw a lot of speculation saying that, hey, if the Canucks hire Yeo and Bruce Boudreau doesn't work out, hey, they can fire Boudreau and immediately hire Yeo from the assistant coach to the interim head coach, and they could go from there because they have that option. And honestly, I kind of don't want to see Mike Yeo as the main guy here anytime soon. I would prefer to have him in an assistant role, but he's just one name out of many that's been thrown around in this conversation, so we'll see where the Vancouver Canucks go with their assistant coaching staff. And then we have ourselves the last quote from Rick Dollywall's Twitter talking about Jim Rutherford. He says, "We want a highly competitive team in Abbotsford next year. It's very important for us. We will spare no cost in Abbey." And all in all, that's a really good thing as well, because we saw the Abbotsford Canucks this previous season actually have themselves a pretty good run. Now, they kind of choked the bed towards the end there against the Bakersfield Condors in the postseason, but still, for all intents and purposes, a brand new AHL team, just given the reins here to Vancouver prospects and all the free agent signees that they had. They did pretty well, all things considered, and you could see the roster makeup of that Abbotsford Canucks team from last season. They had a lot of one-year deals, a lot of players that were NHL tweeners given top-line minutes on this team, and as a result, you had guys like Sheldon Dries, Nick Patan, going out there and scoring some points and actually being effective players. It gave the Abbey crew a lot to cheer for, and I know a lot of Canucks fans, myself included, have called out the AHL and the Abbotsford Canucks by saying, like, hey, this is, at the end of the day, a development league. The reason they moved to Abbotsford was because they wanted a closer farm team. So, for any call-ups, they wouldn't need to travel across the gosh darn continent from Utica, New York to Vancouver, BC. Furthermore, you still have to go out there and develop your prospects, Trent Cull, because Danila Klimovich not playing in the postseason and playing Jet Wu as a forward definitely is not the way to go about things when it comes to developing your prospects. So, I do like that Rutherford is saying that we're still going to make this team competitive. We still want to spend money to make sure this team is good enough and worthy to be an AHL squad. It's just, I do feel like there should be a lot of emphasis also placed on developing the prospects, because aside from Thatcher Demko, there hasn't really been a full-time Utica Comet that became good in the NHL. Okay, no, I guess Markstrom too, but those are two goalies. They don't really count. Tell me in the comments your thoughts about these Rutherford quotes. We didn't get to the Henrik Sedin thing, which I'm upset about, but we'll make a video about that soon, talking about Henrik Sedin and his role as a Vancouver Canucks personnel option. But either way, talk to me in the comments your thoughts about these Rutherford quotes, Miller, the draft, second overall, the Abbotsford Canucks, and the coaching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Trolls 99, and bye.